Thanks so much for visiting Tina Butty on YouTube. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello and welcome to the Tea and a Buddy podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And we are back with the second part of the British invasion of America.
Yes.
The 1980s.
We're back.
We're back. We are back. And yes, we're going to be talking in this episode about the second British invasion.
Yeah.
Music while. And you know...
Which you consider it to be a British invasion. And I understand mostly why. But are you the only one who considers it to be a British invasion?
No.
Because, in the 70s...
it has its own references on the internet and everything. So.
Because to me... Okay, so if you guys listened last time, you'll know at the very end of the podcast I started talking. and we almost continued to go... I don't know, unless Dominic edited that out, which he probably did. Yes.
I'm editing all your parts out, and I'm just me talking.
I need to listen to these podcasts.
Yeah, she doesn't listen to them, She doesn't know, She doesn't...
I heard them the first time around.
It's like they don't even know who Erica is. Our millions of fans out there, they just think it's just me.
Oh, my God. No, what I was going to say at the end of the previous podcast is You don't not consider the 80s to be a second British invasion because I get it. But, I mean, British bands just kind of stayed around.
They stayed
the 70s.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is
you had Led Zeppelin,
Pink Floyd.
Yeah. Wings.
Rolling Stones.
Yeah, Rolling Stones were
Wings,
still around.
The Who.
The Who was still around.
Elton John, all those types of people.
Yeah, David Bowie. Mm.
Yeah, they all stayed around. They were all popular in the 1970s. But, you'd think in the 80s a resurgence happened of the new British talent. Because there was a lot of stuff like what had happened in the 70s, pop charts had become dominated by US acts, mainly.
Yeah.
I mean, but US acts like Kiss and,
disco,
and the Eagles.
Disco came.
This is like later on, the late 70s, yeah.
I'm getting ahead.
AOR rock. Album-oriented rock,
You guys, the look he just gave me was like, stop talking.
Yes, you're getting ahead now. We need to cycle back. You're jumping through time, and I can't pin it down.
Okay, go ahead. I'll let you talk, and I'll just chime in with my yeah,
and I'll edit those out. So. So you can just love all this. No, I won't edit. As you know, Erica's here, and she's the biggest one.
Don't say that just to convince me that you really don't edit my bits out.
No, I edit actually me out because I don't know how they put up with me going blah 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 blah.
Anyway,
back on track. By the late 60s, there was kind of like an evening out. There was American bands, and in the 70s, there was another American. There was kind of like like the Bay City Rollers came over and had a brief surge of popularity. So there was like a little bit of something going on there. But you had Queen, you had David Bowie, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, as all these major acts in like the 70s. But it was very like corporate rock, very stadium rock, very arena. Like it was just very much.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, and it was all kind of the same, you had Kiss and you had all, and it was just very American music,
Yeah.
Even though there wasn't like an invasion happening, it was like they were American now, the Rolling Stones, Queen and everything. They were just like any other band,
They were so familiar.
And there was commercial, it was just basically, like, oh, we'll do a 10-day stadium tour.
No, I get what you're saying.
You're just making money for music for money now.
I get what you're saying. The 70s rock was an evolution of the 60s British invasion.
Yes.
So to the point where everyone in the 70s, British or American,
it was all about making money.
Yeah. Well, they all sounded similar-ish in style.
Yes, it was similar in style. it was like big hair, big guitars, double neck guitars.
Yeah. And the kind of hits.
Theatrics, like, Smoke and stuff, and Alice Cooper, and, all this.
And the kind of radio-friendly hit songs that you've come to know and love, basically, just more of them.
Yeah, I'd say so, but not really, because it was just kind of like Led Zeppelin, it was just that was happening all throughout the 70s. There was nothing really interesting going on. Okay. It's like that's where people go like that. It's like, oh yeah, old British band reunites on tour, like Spinal Tap. It was very Spinal Tap. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie. It's very much like that, Yeah. It was just the same kind of thing happening. Mm-hmm. And then by 1979, that had all kind of like burned itself out. Yeah. Because disco, that people weren't going to concerts anymore because they were like, I don't want to see the Bee Gees, I don't want to see the Carpenters, I don't want to see all this like people doing jive talking and all this stuff. It's like, and so it all just kind of like ground to a halt, and so there was no more money left. Yeah. Basically. So I guess in like 1980, they were like, oh, well, we should just put out, we should start music videos. 1981, MTV came along.
Video killed the radio star.
Except all the American artists and, that were around, like the Eagles and stuff like that, they weren't making music videos. Yeah. For some weird reason, American bands didn't make music videos. I guess it was just like, oh, just go out and tour and we'll film your concert and that's it. But it's like, that's kind of boring, considering, whereas in Britain, people were like, because of the Beatles, bands were making like these kind of like artsy films, like, like Strawberry Fields Forever and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, but those
they were making like, they were showing in Britain.
They were showing on shows like
Top of the Pops.
Right? Okay. The reason is because we didn't really have anything like that over
You didn't have anything like that. I mean, you had American Bandstand, but
that wasn't like, I mean, we
Top
still
of the
had
Pops was Top of the Pops was a show in Britain. It ran from 1964 to the early 2000s.
I mean, they still had Ed Sullivan, I think, up until
1971.
Oh, what, did it only go to 1971? Oh, okay. But they didn't really. Those were all more about live performances, live in quotation
But it was like
marks,
it was a cabaret style. It was like it was a variety show.
No, but what I mean is they didn't really. Although that's not true, is it? That's not true because they showed on American Bandstand.
The Beatles.
One of the Beatles. Yeah.
When they came back from their like,
so they did show,
a couple of months, they'd been like disappeared. Everyone thought they'd broken up. And then in like, I think maybe it was early 1967, they showed Strawberry Fields Forever and they had the moustaches and it was just a weird kind of artsy film with the song.
They weren't the little mop tops that everybody remembered.
Yes, they were just like, they looked, and they asked the audience afterwards, go, what do you think of that? They go, well, they kind of look weird.
Oh, they've gone weird.
They've gone weird. They've grown moustaches and I don't like this sound and they looked angry and And someone was like, oh, well, I like it. Yeah, it's new. Yeah. It's different, Yeah. It's like, I was kind of sick of them doing their, yeah, anyway,
but I guess maybe enough people thought it was weird that didn't become a trend on American Bandstand. You know what I mean? Showing little, like, filming little videos to go along with your song.
Like, you wouldn't find Elvis doing that for his singles.
No.
Elvis, I mean, the only thing Elvis really did for his music was do like the 68 comeback special and Aloha from Hawaii concerts. And that's what everybody kind of just did. They just filmed, if you want to see him playing your favorite hits, here's a clip from the show at the auditorium in Dallas or Vegas or wherever. Austin City Limits Live or whatever.
Yeah.
But in Britain, it was kind of like, well, I kind of like this, making a video and making a story out of it, and me being in a bed while the song plays, or me dressed up as a woman, or dressed up as a man, or whatever. It's kind of like just make it weird and visual. And they were doing, and like for example, in the 70s, I'm trying to think of like an iconic kind of video. I mean, I'm thinking of Queen's "I Want to Break Free," which I think was specifically made because of the MTV thing, but they were making that anyway. Mm-hmm. they were doing that kind of stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So when MTV started, they looked around, you know, they had VJs, video jockeys.
Yeah.
But it was just kind
you
of
guys, any like young listeners that we have, MTV used to be so cool. I can remember when I was really
it was
little.
You know, you might watch it now for like Jersey Shore and all that kind of reality stuff, but
Teen
it
Mom.
did not Teen Mom, it did not start off like that. It started
No.
off as a 24/7 music channel, especially over here.
Music videos, just like music documentaries, music interviews with musicians. It was just like, it was so good. You know, I can remember, like, because I lived in a small town, and I don't know, they just didn't have MTV was not widespread at one point. Still, you know, when it first came out, it
wasn't on
just
cable
came
TV.
out like in the and I remember they would run these commercials. I want my MTV. Go, you tell your TV
Cable provider.
station.
Yeah,
I want my MTV. You know, that was like their big campaign to like go widespread. And I was always like, yeah, I do want my MTV. I'm like this.
She's all pointing at the wall, like, yeah, I do want my MTV. I want it back now.
I'm pointing like that because I can remember the TV sitting up on my chest of drawers in my little bedroom that I had.
Your little finger, and she looks all little, like she did back then.
I was little, and I would be pointing up there because I was like, you know, I was down here, so I was like, I do want my MTV. I'll tell them. I'll do it.
I'll tell them. I'll tell them now. I'll tell them right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when it started in 81, they looked for like American bands that had made music videos, and it was just like, oh, well, there's clips of them playing a show at the Concert Gabot or whatever, you know, wherever in Dallas, you know, like Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
In 1976 or whatever, you know, like the Eagles or Kiss or whatever, you know. And it's just like, well, that's kind of old and not fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we want to show videos like what the Beatles did, you know, and whatever the bands did and stuff like that, you know, made an interesting like story video.
Yeah.
So they had to like plumb the depths of like British artists like Elton John and Bowie and Paul McCartney and Wings and you know, and the first one played on MTV was Video Killed the Radio Star, because it was already a couple of years old, and so the music video, so that's what it kind of came from. And I mean, you had Rod Stewart and everything like that. But again, you know, like what was coming out of Britain, like, you know, like Human League, Wham, you know, like the New Wave, New Romantic, Spandau Ballet and all that, you know.
Yeah.
They were kind of like, you know, doing crazy like hairstyles and synth pop and cheekbones and makeup and all this. Yeah. And it was like, that's what started
Boy
it.
George.
Boy George Culture Club, yeah, another one. So it was like American bands were kind of not doing that because they were still getting off the whole, we've been out rocking, you know, at the you know, we've been with Blue Oyster Cult all night, you know.
The crazy
and we're still
hair
getting
and
disco and Bee Gees and all that,
and
you
the
know.
makeup and all of that stuff, though. That was an evolution of Bowie, wasn't it?
It was an evolution of glam rock,
yeah.
T-Rex, all that kind of stuff, you know, where they'd come out with the platform shoes and the glittery faces and the wild hair and And, you know, so they just adapted that, you know, like Duran Duran and everything, you know, they adapted the kind of like, you know, and to make it like this, like, oh, period drama, for like, her name is Rio and she, you know, dance across the sand, you know, it's like, you know, and so this was kind of like, people were just kind of like, I read a couple of quotes from people who were like working at MTV or were journalists were like, oh, the guys were so beautiful and they knew how to do their makeup so well. And it was just like, we just, you know, and that's what it precipitated the Human League getting huge. And it was from about like 82 to 87. That, you know, Wham.
Because then hair bands took over.
Yes, but hair bands again, that was again another thing. I mean, and again, American bands had caught up. They figured, Guns N' Roses and Van Halen and Bon Jovi. Oh, we have to make videos. That's a good idea.
Yeah,
let's make some crazy videos where I'm dancing around a warehouse going, yeah, you know, you give love a bad name, you know, and it's just like, instead of it being at a concert somewhere, you know, I'm just going to be looking, you know, looking cool in this like set and everything, you know.
So, but to me, the British invasion bands of the 80s, I mean, you named some.
Yeah, Human League, Duran Duran, Spandau Ballet.
But I mean, and they were big.
A Flock of Seagulls.
They were not as big as the ones from the 60s.
No, they weren't, because again, you know, it's like it was like a second wave, and
yeah, they were all.
But they were dominating the charts, is what I mean.
Well, okay, yeah. Because I was gonna say they were all sort of like 1-2 hit wonders, really, over here.
Yes, yeah, I guess so.
But I guess so. Yeah, there was a lot of them. Like most of the hits in that time period you listed, 82 to 87. A
lot of one-hit wonders.
Most of the hits were probably from those British bands.
I think like 1984, 85 was like the biggest like thing, because again, a lot of established act. Phil Collins, he was kind of established with Genesis, but he was huge in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was like, why? He was like a little balding guy, you know. He was a little balding guy that freaking played drums, and you know, and he didn't look particularly attractive, but he was doing. I can hear it coming in the music video, MTV. You know, they played his song, and you know they You Can't Hurry Love, and Don't what was it? Think Twice.
Yeah.
He was massive. And it was kind of like, you know, this guy had, he had a resurgence of popularity, I think. Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and, you know, they all had, like, major hits in that decade because of MTV. And they were riding something that they'd already created before, you know.
Yeah.
They were getting in on it, you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, what hits did Paul McCartney have in the 80s? But he did the one with Stevie Wonder.
Michael Jackson.
He did the
Thriller video.
With
there you go. Michael Jackson was an American artist. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of like saw the what was going on, you know, and I think he did the Thriller video.
Okay, so
which was another one, you know, the freaking was a production.
So I don't know if I'm getting ahead of you again. If you're gonna have to edit me out.
No, I mean that's fine. I mean I think that.
I want to know if. Well, I mean you already said the hair, the makeup and stuff.
The thing is, you know, like Wham. Take Wham for instance. They were pretty big over there. They had more than one hit.
Oh yeah.
I mean George Michael. I mean everybody. 10 points if you can name the other member of Wham. Erica doesn't know.
I have no idea.
She has no idea, and I've told her like several hundred times over the years. There was another guy in Wham, and his name was, and she was like, I don't know. All I know was George Michael.
No idea.
Because George Michael was absolutely gorgeous.
He was gorgeous. I mean, everybody thought that.
But there was another guy in Wham.
Yeah.
What was his name? Well, I know his name because I know these things.
Let us know. Yeah, you send us their name, and we'll give you a shout out on social media.
Yeah. But yeah, George Michael. You know, they did a video at what was it called? Like a Hammersmith Odeon or something, where they took it over, and they had these oversized shirts on. Choose Life and all that. Yeah. Designed by Catherine Hammett, and and that was like a fashion statement in the 80s because he wore that, you know.
Yeah.
Flock of Seagulls had the hair that, you know, like the comb down here, and it was like up like that. He was like, you know, that was another MTV thing. And
that
again,
just makes me think of that Friends episode.
With Chandler has the same, but there you go. It influenced. Yeah. You know, it's like, the 80s.
But I mean, did anybody have that? Did anybody do those things like in life?
Chandler did those things, okay?
You know, like.
And he had Ross looking like Daryl Hall, I guess, from, was it Oates? One of Hall and Oates, you know.
I was a baby.
Perm and everything, you know.
I was a very little one in the 80s. You know, I was barely alive. So I can't, and I lived in a small town where you know that none of these like trends, you know, they take like extra long getting to these little small towns, especially in the Texas
There's a cultural
Panhandle.
revolution going on, but it's not going on in the Panhandle.
No, that's.
I mean, it happened in Britain too, in remote places of Yorkshire in the 60s. It was like swinging London, but it's like it's not going on in Yorkshire. You know?
Right. So I mean, I can't really say if American life was influenced in the 1980s in the same way that American life was influenced in the 1960s.
Yeah,
by that
I suppose so.
But maybe it was.
And I have to say that Hall & Oates, the Ross look of Hall & Oates were an American band, so
yeah. But probably
Miami Vice.
Right, yeah.
That was American show. So yeah, there wasn't too much British TV that was like
or movies.
Or movies.
Fashion, I'm just trying to think. Like, I think for the most part, the fashion and stuff was very, like, kind of American. I think I
suppose so, yeah. I mean, Britain at that point was, like, going into this new wave era. So there was still, like, overtones from the punk period. The punk period didn't really catch on over here. Because it came on the heels.
That depends on who you ask.
It depends on who you ask who was into it at the time, you know? Yeah. It's like, I was into, like, that kind of stuff, but it wasn't like it was in the 60s, like, everybody was into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But with the punk period, it's like, I always think of that scene in National Lampoon's European Vacation when they go to London and they're driving along the street and they've got, like, Town Called Malice playing, because it came out in, like, 84, didn't it? Or 86? Something like that. But everybody's dressed like really punkish from like the late 70s.
I will say that my first time in Wales, I think it was my first time, maybe the second time.
You saw a guy with a safety pin shoved through his nose, didn't you?
With blue spiked mohawk, the chain coming down from his pocket, and he had the really like small acid washed jeans. I can't remember like what the rest of his clothes were, but he looked very like stereotypical 80s punk to me, and I was just like, where am I and what decade is this?
I mean, in some respects, Britain kind of never left that period. Like the punkish look of the 1980s, like the Johnny Rotten,
late 70s, early
Sex
80s,
Pistols, the Clash kind of like look, just everything, just like a tiny leather jacket and like it was kind of like
I think this guy had the leather jacket on and the
I really like it was
sunglasses.
Like the rockers out, because there was the mod revival in the late 70s too, so there was like everybody was like wearing like skinny ties and saying like the Jam and everything, they wanted to look like that, and again it was like another thing from the 60s, but then the punk period was like the rockers, the punks.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's like really old people, that's the last thing they can remember about popular culture is punk rock. You know what it's all about? Punk rock. It's like punk rock.
Get out of here, you punk rocker.
Get out of here, you bloody punk rocker. If you haven't seen Friday Night Dinner, you've got to go see it. It's funny.
You gotta go see it?
Oh, gotta go and see it somewhere. I guess it's on Netflix. I don't know.
Find it, yeah. But yeah, so I do understand what you're saying. I don't agree that it was a full-on invasion. I think it was like... It was just a
landing. That was largely repelled.
It was a British skirmish.
So get those punk rockers back where they belong. Yeah, because I don't know. I think, like, I've always kind of thought that since coming over here, America seems to be kind of slow on the uptake with things. And this is a different conversation entirely.
Yeah.
Talking about America being the greatest country and the most innovative country, and it's like, 100 years ago, you know.
If you guys do not look at our website ever, Dominic's got a blog that he posts twice a month, the first and last Wednesdays of the month.
It's called Living in America.
If you want to get wound up, just go on
Get
over
wound
there.
up. Get wound up and call me a punk rocker.
Just go over there and look for those, because he tends to rant about things like he's going on about right
ranting. Now. Well, it's detrimental to what we're saying. But I'm like, again, talking about the music videos, Britain kind of have been doing that for like at least half a decade, and they've been a staple, but American bands didn't really catch on until MTV came along.
I don't know.
So it was like it needed MTV to like...
Well, now I'm curious.
But then again...
Now I'm curious if MTV was inspired by Top of the Pops? Do we know?
I have no idea.
I'm wondering if
that's
that's where the idea came from.
Because Top of the Pops started in 1964.
And if so, that would have been a hardcore British invasion because MTV did change a lot about music and culture and things like that, you know?
Yeah.
I'm curious. If anybody knows, let us know.
I mean, I imagine it probably was something to do with Top of the Pops and all these other places because that's what the Beatles started doing, you know. It's like, oh, we don't want to go on Top of the Pops, so we'll just make a video and we can send it to Top of the Pops. And then they were like, oh, we can actually send this to America and we can send this to Australia and we don't actually have to go to these places.
Go on, do your Paul McCartney quote from the Beatles anthology.
What's my Paul McCartney quote?
He says, oh, yeah, we invented MTV.
We invented MTV, yeah. Well, they say Richard Lester, you know, is like the grandfather of MTV, you know, with the Hard Day's Night and everything, you know, like the whole kind of thing. Yeah, they say that, you know, I think he got an award or something from them. It was kind of like it was like some sort of like joke award, you know. They sent him saying, oh, to the grandfather or the godfather of MTV, you know,
oh, really?
Hard Day's Night.
That's so interesting. That's so funny, yeah.
Because it's like, you know, that you basically inspired the Beatles, you know, to make this music video. Mm-hmm. And I guess A Hard Day's Night would have been what turned them onto it, because it's just like, well, we can just film ourselves and put it out around the world, and we don't have to be bothered going around, and we save ourselves the trip.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, that caught on with the Rolling Stones and all that. And it's like, actually, we can sit in a studio and make all this crazy crap.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say
Mick Jagger, you know, doing his thing. He's like, I can show off my clothes and it's gonna be great, you know.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it let them be creative. It gave them another creative outlet.
The Beatles taught the art of stage makeup to the Rolling Stones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So really. Who were in turn taught by like Ted Taylor 4 or some band were like, oh yeah, you need stage makeup so you don't look so white in the lights, you know. And so they started doing it, and they had like outspan orange. They looked like outspan oranges because they looked like, you know, Oompa Loompas, as you like to say. You know? Yeah. They looked so orange, and then they were like, oh, then they were like, oh, you put makeup on? Oh, oh yeah, okay, I'll do it. And then what happened? Mick Jagger took it to, you know, and then glam rock was born, and everyone.
Jagger and Keith Richards
with
the
eyeliner,
the guy liner,
the guy liner. You know, it's like, you know, there you go. I mean, you can trace it all back. It's like all links there. You know.
Weigh in on this conversation. How do you guys feel about guy liner? This is totally off topic, but you know,
you like it now.
I'm into guy liner.
Yeah,
I'd like you to get some guy liner.
You like eye makeup and stuff from like Last Kingdom, all the Danes and stuff. Yeah, you like all the Danes wearing the eye makeup and thing. You're like, yeah,
Jack Sparrow and Pirates
Jack
of the
Sparrow
Caribbean.
style. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think maybe pirates wore it back then. Maybe Danes wore it back then. We don't know. I think it was just because they'd been punched in the face. And, you know, it's like they imagine, like, oh, it was all black all the time, you know, and the deep-set eyes and, you know, like rubbing dirt all over themselves and whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, but the music video, there you go. It's like, you know, the Rolling Stones doing Start Me Up or whatever, you know, and it's just Mick doing his, you know, dancing.
Yeah.
And, of course, you know, it was like some crazy, I mean, they don't have to go out and do this. And, you know, it's more fun watching that than like concert footage of them just standing on the stage and playing, you know.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know, it's like, if you weren't there, it's not as exciting, you know. I mean, it's still great. I mean, I still, like, the example I'm thinking of is, like, Rock Show. Yeah. Wings Rock Show. That was pretty good. But Paul was making videos, like, for Good Night Tonight in, like, 1979.
Yeah.
He was, like, dressing up as, like, a 1920s, like, big band and all that, you know. So if you watch the Mccartney video collection, which we own, you know, you can say, and in the 80s he made, for Tug of War, I think it wasn't, The Pipes of Peace. He did like a 1914 Germany versus England type thing, you know, like the World War I story.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you remember it?
I mean, yeah.
And, you know, he's like, he plays the German soldier and he plays, you know, and it's, you know, that's the kind of thing that MTV was was perfect for. So you know, the Brits upped their game in that respect. You know, it's like, oh yeah, they finally got somewhere we can show our music videos now, because you know, like Ed Sullivan and all that kind of stuff, they were kind of reluctant to show Penny Lane or Strawberry Fields or, you know, all that kind of stuff, because it was like,
they wanted them there.
We want a live appearance, but this is a bit of a weird video you've sent us here, and our audience don't like this. You know? It's just like.
But yeah, so let us know if you guys can think of any other time period that you would consider it to be a British invasion. I wonder if anybody thinks that, you know, One Direction and Ed Sheeran and all of these
are part of the second one.
Yeah, what is it?
1975?
Aren't they British?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Smells like chocolate.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
The Spice Girls and Oasis.
Oh yeah.
They were considered part of the second one, because they kind of, you know, it was too close.
They didn't come out in the 80s though.
No, they came out in the 90s, but you know, and the end of like
they called that
the British acts dominating the charts was like, I think the least ones were in 2002. Didn't
they have something they called that period?
Cool Britannia.
Cool Britannia.
Yeah, I mean, it was when Tony Blair was elected Prime Minister. Everybody, and you know, Britpop was emerging.
Yeah.
So you had all these like bands like Pulp, Blur, and Oasis, and the Spice Girls, and all that, all kind of like dominating the charts in Britain.
Yeah.
For like a period of like 2 or 3 years, 95 to 98 or something, you know.
Yeah. So let us know if you agree. If the 1980s was a second British invasion, and like I said, let us know if you think there have been any more British invasions since then.
Yes.
I don't really think. I mean, you could argue Oasis and the Spice Girls influenced culture, though. I mean, the Spice Girls, particularly with their crazy outfits and the platform shoes, and all of that.
That was glam rock again.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
it wasn't punk rock; it was glam rock. I'll tell you what it's all about.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
As always, we really appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
And you tuning in and listening to us ramble on week after week, month after month,
love it.
Year after year. We will talk to you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.